Thank you very much. This is going to be quick because once I'm done, I can have a proper cocktail. So yes, it's true, the apple does not fall from the tree. I'm thrilled to be standing up here because when I grew up, we sat around the table and we got to hear war stories about restructuring, which some people may think is really boring. Clearly I don't because I work in the industry. But I got to hear stories all the time about how fascinating these things were that he was working on, but more importantly, how awesome he thought the people were that he got to work with. So I thought, if I'm going to have to put a lot of hours in, I hope to God I like the people as much as he does. So here I am today. So I am honored to introduce you to my father. You know him as Bill. I'm required to call him Sir. I'm just kidding. But without further ado, Bill Repko.
So the First Lady's not going to introduce me tonight?
The light sucks.
I know.
He's short too.
That was good. Megan made me say that. She's a Republican.
Watch your back there.
First of all, thank you to the M&A advisor, Roger, David, and Steve. You guys are fantastic. Happy 15th birthday. I can't even remember when I was 15. And I'm very honored that you guys decided to do this. I really appreciate it. I'm not so honored, however, that I'm going to spend a lot of time telling you about my thoughts. You heard a lot of those today. I promise you at the Joe L party, if you want to hear my thoughts, I will get much smarter the more you have to drink. But, you know, Corinne talked about people and Megan talked about people, and so, you know, when I was talking to David about this, I said, do you mind if I tell a couple of stories about, you know, people that I've hung out with here? So he said, no. And so I've got a couple of stories. And the first one's about Wilbur. And I met Wilbur, you know, 30 or so years ago. He was then still an investment banker. And a group of us were stewarding the newly created equity in a company called Alice Chalmers, which we restructured out of court. And so the banks and the insurance company held a lot of the equity, and Wilbur called and said, I have a prospective buyer. And so on the day of the meeting, Wilbur walked in with Sam Zell and proceeded to give his introduction, you know, in typical sort of laconic Wilbur style. You know, if Wilbur got excited, you know, maybe one eyebrow. Sam Zell, on the other hand, you know, his whole body is his pill. You know, there's no way he can play poker. And so Sam broke into Wilbur's introduction, and by the way, we needed about $15 a share to break even. Wilbur was leading us into that, and Sam couldn't stand it anymore. And he said, look, this is a terrible deal. Stupid this, dumb that, broken everything. So I'm going to give you guys $3 a share. And I advise you to take it. And Wilbur will explain why that's a fair price. So, what you need to know about Alice Chalmers, was it made big stuff. It made the orange ag equipment. It made cement kilns, hydroelectric turbines. In fact, they made the turbines that are in the Aswan Dam. You know, basically big things that revolve. So the various divisions of Alice had their own contracts, and they were named after the divisions. So this particular meeting was held in the room that was owned by the large rotating apparatus division. So if you ever get screwed by Wilbur, it started there. I'm sorry Jack Butler isn't here. Jack called me and said, "Hey, you're getting this award," and I immediately asked him, "What happened to the first 5 guys you considered?" So Jack and I have been friends and colleagues for a long time. He'd probably agree with that. And he would bring me his finest clients. You know, nearly dead, out of cash, limited prospects, and in need of lots and lots of money. I mean, it just didn't get any better than that. And so this one time, Jack brought a client in, and they were in a lot of trouble. It was a retailer, and he said they need a lot of money. I said, okay, we can probably work that out. I said, but we're going to need to do a couple of things because it's a large amount of money. We're going to need to syndicate this fairly broadly. So we're going to do, you know, some asset-based lending type characteristics. So we'll have some advance rates, and we're going to do some cash flow stuff. So we'll have some covenants. And Jack looked at me and said, "Covenants?" In that kind of derisive tone he uses, which basically means to, you are clearly afflicted with a near terminal case of dumbass. So I ignored that. And by the way, that's one of the secrets to dealing with Jack. And I said, all right, so, you know, only 2, fixed charge coverage and a minimum EBITDA. And he said, well, Bill, maybe you didn't get past the gross revenue line in your due diligence. We don't have any EBITDA. You moron. He didn't say you moron, but he clearly meant it. So anyway, we had a spirited discussion, and the EBITDA covenant turned out to be EBITDA shall be not less or not worse than minus $300 million. No, it gets better. So, 3 days before the company was going to file, I got a call from another financial institution that said, we're buying you out. I was like, no. So I called Jack and I said, what do I do? He said, don't hang up the phone. Okay, Corinne. As Corinne said, we've been friends for a long time. Congratulations on your award. I can't think of a better person, and you know, listen to those exploits. It's amazing. You're one of my favorite people. You grace the profession. You're a great teacher, a great lecturer. But let me tell you about the time that Corinne and I were really afraid together. This is actually not funny. She told me last night not to tell the story I was going to tell. So I'm going to listen. But just to put it into perspective, the other deal we did was International Harvester, which made the ag equipment, International trucks, and so on and so forth. Corinne was representing an insurance company, and I was a banker. And our exposure in that case was, now you had like 200 million or something? I had, okay, 400 million. That makes it even better. We had $150 million in that deal. And just to put it in perspective, that was 150% of our legal lending limit. We were allowed to do that because of state banking regulations. But $150 million was our 150% of our legal lending limit. It was a lot of money. And to put it in perspective, I want you to think about it. So we had that, Chemical had that, Chase had that, JP Morgan had that, Continental Illinois had that, First Chicago had that. Everybody had it, except Wells Fargo. They were smart even then. And so, just to put in perspective what $150 million meant in those days, our legal lending at J.P. Morgan, about when I retired, I'm not going to tell you exactly the number, but think about it as about $15 billion. So, you know, think about one creditor, let alone 10 of us, with exposures of each $22 billion today, and what sort of fear existed in that room. I mean, is it any wonder we all got to be really good friends? Because we were terrified. Nothing ever seemed quite so bad after that. Anyway, Corinne, by the way, she was subordinated. But I think you got 100 cents on the dollar.
2 out of 4.
Okay, so I'll let you get back to your table conversations. I know I need to be brief, but I do want to reflect just for a moment, like Corinne. I've thoroughly enjoyed everything I've done here. And I'm the kind of guy that's always believed that it's never too late to have a happy childhood. So I've been blessed with, you know, great friends, great colleagues, great law attorneys, great investment bankers, and for 32 years at J.P. Morgan and the 8 years since I've joined Repko, it's been an absolute pleasure. And all those people understood the notion of it's not fun. So, and of course I have to say thanks to my bride Susie, who put up with crazy schedule, late nights, you know, crazy hours for phone calls. But she always knew that, you know, while I loved what I did, I worked to live, not live to work. And ultimately, with all jokes about having the entire family here, they're not all here. It's been family that's delivered everything good in my life. So I've been very fortunate to balance work and life, and I just want to thank everybody who's ever let me do that in this business, because it's been amazing. So one last story before I sit down. Speaking of work-life family balance, I was driving up to see a lacrosse game in Maine, and I was on a GM phone call. By the way, notwithstanding the fact that it was 39 days in bankruptcy, the conference calls were forever. So I was in my car with this awesome hands-free capability in a non-GM vehicle, of course. And my radar detector went off, and I had forgotten to mute the microphone. And the radar detector was really loud. So Fritz Henderson, you know, objected to the noise and you know, the distraction and everything else, and he said, "Who is that?" And I said, "Fritz, it's Repko, you know, sorry, it's my radar detector." And he said, "Well, where are you?" And I said, "Well, Fritz, I can't tell you, but the last road sign I saw was beware of moose in road." And you know, on reflection, that's sort of a metaphor for exactly what happened to us.